a small event conducted only by the Shakespeare in Bengal group. So I'm very happy that we have a really good turnout, because this was a sort of matter of debate whether we would have to use the chatai or not, and I'm very glad that we've had to use the chatai. So I would now like to welcome Aparna, director of Arshinagar, which is based on Romeo and Juliet, to come up to the dais, please, and Mukul Ahmed, who is also here with us, who's a UK-based theatre director, who is also quite coincidentally directing a production of Romeo and Juliet for the department. It will be staged on the 21st of this month at the Gandhi Bhavan. So he's also here with us, and we hope to sort of start off the discussion talking about the play, talking about adaptations, talking about Bengali adaptations, but do feel, please. I'll just explain what the sort of, this is going to be really a sort of freewheeling kind of discussion come Q&A session. So perhaps, I will just sort of kickstart the discussion by asking certain questions, and Mr. Ahmed will also who has seen the film very recently, he also has certain questions we were just discussing. So he will also ask certain questions. But do feel free to interject, just raise your hand and just be sort of discreet about it. Don't interrupt a discussion which is in progression. So I'll be very happy if people just sort of, if something is being discussed about which you have a question, just raise your hand and it'll be addressed. So it's not a fixed kind of format, but do feel free to interject. And the other thing is, probably we will be here for about an hour, because there's another program which is due to happen in front of the Suvarna Jayanti Bhavan, so we can't sort of carry on for very long. So just keep that in mind. Keep your questions short when you ask them. Thank you very much.
Do you have any other?
Or we could just, because you can use these mics, it's not a problem.
Should I start?
Yeah. Oh. No. Just hold your horses for a little bit. Ananda, please come and sit with us. Please, join us. আমি জানি আপনি রিহার্সাল আছে। Okay, I'd just like to begin the discussion by asking about sort of your, as I did in the previous interview as well, about your sort of informal school interactions with Shakespeare, how you got interested. You spoke about your father's interest and how he influenced you. So perhaps if you could just begin with that, your teachers, okay. And then we could move on to the film.
Well, I'm not really a Shakespeare scholar at all. But first, before I start, I'd like to thank all of you for having had to make use of the chatai. I'm really thrilled that so many people turned out. One of the reasons that I wasn't a Shakespeare scholar is because we had a teacher who taught Shakespeare very badly. She taught us Twelfth Night, as you saw, some of you may have seen, in 36 Chorungi Lane, and she taught it really badly. I mean, we just couldn't find it in our hearts to take any interest in Shakespeare at all. But fortunately, my father was there, and he used to read to me from Antony and Cleopatra, from Julius Caesar, from Macbeth, Hamlet, and Twelfth Night, As You Like It. So I got a little interested. It wasn't, and this came up when I made 36 Chorungi Lane. when I started making a film about teachers I'd known, this came up very naturally because we were taught badly, and we used to wish that we had a better teacher. But I realized how much we loved her actually, and how much she had meant to us. Old Miss Colt, who's passed on now.
Moving on, would you like to sort of come in there about your work with Shakespeare?
Hi, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon to everyone, and to Aparna and to the university. Yeah, it's just I by chance landed or jumped the boat and landed in England, and slowly the interest grew into Shakespeare. And because I was not taught in an English school back in Bangladesh, I did my schooling there. So, but slowly it grew after kind of arriving to England and mixing up with theatre directors, others, and I think that it slowly grew into that, and I took real interest into directing Shakespeare. However, saying like what Miss Sen said, that I don't have any academic kind of knowledge, but it's a practical thing, doing it. Like when we tell actors that, look, acting is doing. So Shakespeare for me is that just doing it, directing it, rather than analyzing too much. That would be my kind of first take on Shakespeare. Thank you.
If you'd like to tell our students a little bit about how you conceived the film and what how did the idea come to you, or what were you thinking?
I think I realize in retrospect that the need to make this film grew out of the growing intolerance that one perceived in this country, not only in this country, globally actually. If you think about Islamophobia all over America, Europe, it's and also in every sense sort of opposition of the other, despising the other, anything that is different from you. This has started to come out in discourse, it has started to come out in the way you dress, in what you eat, your dietary habits. Everything comes under the scanner now, with this atmosphere of intolerance reigning in the country. I think I had been very concerned about this all my life, and ever since I think the demolition of the Babri Masjid, that's something that I had never thought would happen in secular India. My father and I used to discuss it, and we used to say, no, এটা হবে না. After all, India is a secular country, and it happened. I think I was there at a play that I was acting in at the time, and we all stood there transfixed. We didn't know what was, it seemed like everything had crumbled around us. And ever since then, I think my interest and my awareness of this kept growing. And when I was editing my magazines, especially the first one, Shanunda, I think 60% of my editorials have been about this. And then when I made Mr. and Mrs. Iyer, it was supposed to be just a journey, a love story during a journey. But I don't know how the characters became Hindu and Muslim. They just worked their way into the script. I think what happens is that you have your own politics, and I don't think any one of us is without some kind of politics or the other. And your own politics, your own beliefs, everything comes into the into the films you make, or the stuff you write, or what you paint. It's bound to in any work of art. I think that's what happened. And the idea of a musical came much later, because the last thing I want to do is preach. I don't like preaching in films. There are other platforms for that if you absolutely feel the need to do so. But sometimes, even sort of in a sort of subterranean way, a message comes through. And I think it has in this film. And that is this what I believe in. I believe that love is the only antidote to this atmosphere of hatred growing around us. That's what I felt, and that's what this film actually grew out of.
Thank you. We can start taking some of the questions. I think Shondit back there is getting very restless here.
What is seen entirely in the film is the dialogue between theatricality and cinematicity, if there is a word like this.
Coin it.
Yes. In terms of costume, in terms of the decor, I mean, red is the color of Dev.
The Mitras wear red. Not Dev actually, not Rono. He doesn't wear it so much. He wears mostly blue jeans and white shirts.
The Hindu characters.
The Mitras wear red.
It is the color of Hindu. No, I'm not going into that. I'm going into the dialogue between theatre and cinema. Yeah, deliberately in the wardrobe are not real wardrobe. It's made of paper.
Yes.
So why this?
Wait, did you like it or didn't you?
I like it.
I'm glad, because I just wanted to, you see, the thing is that Arshinagar is not a real place. It's an imaginary place. And everything about it is not real. And at the same time, it is not unknown. It's imaginary, but it's not unknown. In those mirrors are reflected contemporary reality, what is happening around us. So all of that are suggestions to say this is not really real. This is not real, but wait a minute, something seems very real. That's what I wanted to suggest.
Any other pressing questions?
May I just interject?
Yeah.
We all know that, I'm sure that as a filmmaker, even though as a theatre director, that we love to work with dead writers, because then the liberty is there. You can do whatever you want to do. But living writers, they wouldn't allow. Tell us a little bit more about. I was very interested. I went to watch it yesterday. That the verse. How did you kind of see it from the outset? That my Bengali is not very good. It's rusty, but still I understood the rhyme was there.
Yes.
Wahida Rehman was speaking in a sense some Urdu, then at times English. So how did you balance
At
the
times
verse
English.
with...
Wahida Rehman was speaking
no,
English?
other characters.
Okay, other
That
characters,
little
yes.
bit,
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, of course.
What was the-
It was like this. Wahida Rehman, let's take the Wahida Rehman character, Dadi Jan. Ananda, have you seen the film?
No,
You haven't, yes. Well,
for personal family reasons.
no, that's okay. Well, see it before it vanishes from the face of this earth.
Not the earth, but just the big screen.
Well, this is supposed to be seen on big screen.
Yeah.
No, but coming back to Dadi Jan, Wahida Rehman, you see, at one point, Tayyib says, Bahadur Shah Rujir amar dadu dadu dadu. And then Mercutio or Monty says, Khub bujechi chandu. So, this is to suggest that at one time, their, people had come from Awadh with Bahadur Shah and his attendants, his lords and whatever. And Wahida Rehman or Dadi Jan is a descendant of this. So she's still a bit, she still speaks that kind of language. She still has that, the tehzeeb. But the others have stayed here for a long time and they've kind of adjusted. They've become more Bengali. And, the way young people these days, they sprinkle English and Hindi in their language. So that's exactly what has been done. That's how I chose the language.
And if you'd like to comment about the use of the rhyme, because this has been a huge
Well, it can be interpreted in many ways. I used rhyme primarily because I thought that it was very apposite in a musical. I thought that. Professor Partha Chattopadhyay says that I was unwilling to forego Shakespeare's verse. Well, that's another way of looking at it. So there are many ways of looking at one thing, you know. I think if you ask me, I really primarily did it because I wanted to keep it light and not burden it with heaviness, not to be in earnest, you know.
Which I think also relates. This is a question I've asked you before about the humor, because I think humor is very much a part of Romeo and Juliet, and also and it's very difficult in a tragedy which is, you know, so stark in the end.
Yeah.
And also I was also wondering about, you know, the sort of chaos that happens at the end of Romeo and Juliet. You
Yes.
know, the sort of false deaths and real deaths and assumed deaths.
I thought
So,
that wouldn't
Right.
work in this day and age. I mean,
Right.
because this is an adaptation. It's we don't use the Shakespeare text. So I didn't think that, you know, this her killing herself with this sleeping draft and then finding Romeo having it, etc., and then killing herself with a dagger. All this I didn't think really would work. It wouldn't work today. People would start laughing, I thought.
Right.
You know, unless you're presenting it as the Shakespearean play Romeo and Juliet using the same text, then it's different. Then it's completely different. But here it's an adaptation, so I didn't think that would work. I didn't use that. But yes, the humor is there, and I just wanted to make it a little more light-hearted. There is all this. You know, I have done that even in my previous film, Goinar Baksha, The Jewelry Box, where you say something actually quite serious. You're making a comment about the changing position of women in society as, you know, with time. You're talking and making a comment on how women negotiate their feminine space in a male-dominated world. But it has been done in the garb of comedy and laughter and so on and so forth, and magic realism and all of that. But here it was different. It was, you know, I used a rhyme and dance and all of that.
Mukul, would you like to comment on that, the use of verse? Because you were talking about that.
Yeah,
when
we tried actually to balance it. So I'd invite, of course, I'll be pretty much selfish and invite you on the 21st that we have a show. So please do come and watch it. We tried to keep Juliet's verses intact and the nurse. While
You didn't keep everybody's verse.
no. So there are some adaptation. I took the liberty. So mostly kind of Romeo's family, they are speaking in today's English and keeping some of the verse, very minimal. So I did like heavily I edited. So I wanted to ask you also that what was your policy, or did you deliberately edit? That would be my kind of interest area.
Well, I read the text again, of course, several times, but I didn't read it with the intention of editing it, if you know what I mean. For me, Romeo and Juliet, for that matter, I think most of Shakespeare's plays, particularly the tragedies, deal with human emotions. They deal with envy, they deal with jealousy, they deal with ambition, they deal with love and hatred, and all of these things which we all feel. So it is very easy to actually adapt Shakespeare, because basically he's talking about identifiable human emotions. For me, Romeo and Juliet is actually love as an antidote for strife. That's what it is. And I think Shakespeare meant it as such in the essence of the play, because it is with the deaths of this the young lovers that the family feud actually ends. So I tried to, that part I wanted to keep definitely. I wanted to keep that it ends, and extending it beyond the family. I also have the two gangs, the red gang and the black gang, them also coming to some sort of conciliation, you know, some sort of resolution of their hatred, some sort of making up, if you like. And I kept some of the characters who I thought were essential, like Tybalt, like Mercutio, like the friar, and of course the nurse. But I added, and Romeo and Juliet, of course, and their fathers. But I added and kind of mixed up some of one character with another. Like Fufi Jan is Juliet's aunt, and instead of saying just kinsman, I've made Tybalt her cousin. Even though the father does refer to him in deference to Shakespeare as kinsman. তো মনে রেখো তোমার রিশতেদারকে খুন করেছে সে. This is really in deference to Shakespeare, the text. And I have taken some liberties because I felt that this Hindu-Muslim problem has really not changed. I mean, 30 years ago, what it was, it is still today. Because that's the reason why I have the parents, Romeo's mother and Juliet's father. They were lovers. They had a love affair, a love relationship once. They couldn't marry because of their respective families and the restrictions placed upon them. But they would have liked to. I think their lives really after that were never really happy. They made do as best as they could. And then after that, when their children grow up and fall in love, it's Romeo's mother who really understands. Juliet's father doesn't. His mind has taken a different turn in the sense that he has become very overtly a Muslim. Because he was not allowed to marry a Hindu girl, even if she converted. So now he has, he's become Muslim with a vengeance kind of thing. He wants to go on Hajj, and he says there is no question of marrying a Hindu, to which Dadi Jan actually looks surprised because, she thinks, and that's when I think she realizes that this man's life actually has been ruined. That's when she tells her great-granddaughter later on that, go, your father's life was ruined, now you go make your life. So that's the way I dealt with it. And here the friar was turned into a Sufi singer. That serves many purposes in the play, in my film, because actually I don't even know whether it's a film or a play. I've borrowed so heavily from theatre that I sometimes get confused myself. But here Salim Saab, because he's a Sufi singer, the whole thing is based actually on Sufism. Right at the end also you have a Sufi song. Ami ami kore barao, e ami bolo konjona, e ami ke ta bolo na, amar bhetor ami ke tar khobor rakhli na. So that's basically about how you perceive the other. That's what it was.
Yeah, okay. Let's take questions. Yeah.
There are actually two questions. One is, one actor plays three characters, Reshma Bai, Fatih and the slum dweller.
No.
Fatih and the slum dweller
Are the same.
At the end, I became quite confused. Because first I was thinking Fatih lives in the slum.
She does.
Then my daughter points out, no, there are two different characters. Then there's a sort of confusion.
Why was that, I wonder? Because you see what happens is Fatima tells them, Najma Bibi bolchilo Julie ke, she's heard Najma Bibi telling Julie, Bostita jaghanno naki ghingine ek para. This, she says this. And then later on she dresses up as a Hindu in order to, in order to escape the rioters, really.
Yes, that's right. But she then takes shelter with Dadi Jan.
Yes.
And when Dadi Jan calls out for the doctor or something, she comes in like she's another character.
No.
That's when my confusion in my started.
She comes in like another character. She's wearing the same sari.
She is, but somehow I felt that.
Well, I think you were wanting her to play another character.
Maybe that would have complicated a matter. And the second thing is, when the riot is on, there's this character who's trying to run away and collides against the mirror, and the next moment he's stabbed.
Yeah.
So, I thought it was like he's stabbed by himself only. I mean, sort of.
Why not? This is all open to interpretation, because this was Arshinagar, so we had very strategically used mirrors everywhere. And some of the things that were happening was that you came up, you collided against a mirror. Sometimes you saw somebody pass in a mirror without realizing it, and you realize much later, oh, that was a mirror reflection. This we just did because we thought it would be, right for Arshinagar.
Okay, there's a question there.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
ma'am. What was the need for the incestuous relationship between the two cousins? There was an indication.
There was just
It isn't incestuous actually in their faith, because I know of Vilayat Khan and what was his brother's name? Inayat Khan. I think their children were married, or at least engaged to be married when I met them. It often happens. They marry their first cousins.
Royalty always does.
But here, because he was a gangster, he was what we call in Bengali asrito in his mamar bari. He had been given shelter by his uncle Mamujan because his father had died. He was an Akhtar. In fact, he keeps referring to himself as a Khan. So Amra Holam Khan, he says. And then the other fellow, Monte, that's Mercutio, says, Na Shahrukh na Salman tobu ami Khan. So,
And
then he says, Tor bap to chilo refugee, Padubi Akhtar. So he was an Akhtar. But he identifies with the Khan household, he stays there. But as far as the Khans are concerned, as far as Sabir Khan and his wife are concerned, he is no match for Julie, he's a gunda. They use them. Actually, there was another song in the film which he had to throw out, unfortunately, because it was just taking up too much time. It was called Shatash Peti Mal. Shatash Peti Mal, hey, Shatash Peti Mal, aaj lutele kal ki hobe dekha jabe kal. So you have the black gang and the red gang dancing. They've come to get hold of they've come to the dock which is painted to get hold of drugs that have come. And then you keep cutting to their fathers who are having whiskey and relaxing clubs and so on. So they have a very refined lifestyle, sophisticated lifestyle. It's their goons under them who do these sort of underhand dealings and buy and sell drugs and so on. So since Tayyib was leading one such gang, he was not fit for Julie. I mean, Julie's sisters had been married and gone to America, so there was no question of anybody marrying Julie to Tayyib. And Tayyib, I think, I have interpreted it like this. I mean, this was, according to me, the motive. Why is Tayyib always so angry? I love the Tybalt character. He's flamboyant, he's wonderful. But why is he always so angry? I thought that one of the reasons why he's so angry is because he feels so much an outsider in the Khan family. His father was an Akhtar. He was poor. He and his mother were sheltered. And then he falls in love with Julie, or at least has a weakness for her. But there is no question of ever having her. And so his entire anger gets directed towards Romeo.
And does he keep dabbling between the brother and the lover towards Julie?
He doesn't keep dabbling. I think it comes out only in one place. Only one place it comes out, when he's oiling her hair. He actually is in contact with her and he can't help himself, and that's what happens.
Questions? Yes. Cool.
Romeo and Juliet has been done a few times in the last few years. Do you think taking up a story that's relatively well known for most audiences now has made it easier for you to play with the form? Because you've certainly played with the form quite well.
Yes, that could be it. I actually think there can be so many Romeos and Juliets. Somebody said, and I was wondering, why not a lesbian or a homosexual Romeo and Juliet? And involve the entire LGBT movement. I had thought of a Manipuri girl, rebel family of she belonged to a family of Manipuri rebels, and a Jawan who'd just been inducted to the army. A relationship between them, a love affair between them. But then there was a film called Yahan, which was set in Kashmir, which is very similar, so I dropped the idea. It can be done anyway. I've heard of Nazi and a Jew, Romeo and Juliet. So it can be anywhere where there is strife. All you need is conflict. So, and of course, yes, you have to reinvent the play. Which is why I played with the form. I think it needs reinventing.
Any other questions? Yeah, Paramita.
The Arshinagar is an
Maybe give
entirely...
her
Yeah, she needs a mic.
Maybe we...
Yeah, just pass. She's one of our former students who's teaching at an undergraduate college.
Okay.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Arshinagar was an entirely imaginary and fictional place. But when the film begins, Reshma Bai, who's telling the story of Arshinagar through this puppet show, she says she's looking for people to listen to attend this show, and she says that Shakespeare Sahiba ka kahani hai.
Shakespeare Sahib ka.
Sahib ka kahani hai, and this couple come in and they say sex, and she said no, sex bhi hai, lekin Shakespeare. So
No, she says actually, अरे सेक्स नहीं बाबा आजकल सब कोई सेक्स Great Lord, she says. In fact, she has a very sort of की बोलबो भाषा idea about who Shakespeare is.
Yes, so but I found it a little unrealistic. Was it deliberate that the person who's doing this puppet show would know about Shakespeare? And
She would very likely not know, but she may have heard. She may have heard from somewhere, but she has no idea actually that it's a great tragedy and Shakespeare, what kind of a writer Shakespeare is, and so on and so on. She just heard the name,
So, and I just thought, what is deliberate
it was deliberate, yeah.
Imaginary, to contribute to this imaginary,
No, it was deliberately introduced because it was an acknowledgement of the fact that it was a Shakespeare play. And how better than through the narrator herself.
Thank you.
Yeah, Shukriya.
I just had a question because Paramita started with a puppet show. These characters are puppets, as you pointed out when you talked about the goons who are being used by these rich people relaxing in their clubs and so on. The film as a whole brings out the completely helpless character of all these people. I mean, they're being used by larger forces, and even those who kill Ronnie and this girl, Julie at the end, even they are being used. Everyone is being used.
Sort of, yes.
This is, I think, very important take on the tolerance debate. I think it's a very, very important, very important intervention in that tolerance debate. Do you have a little more to say about the way in which you have reduced the agency of these characters? They think of themselves as free agents, but the whole mirror metaphor suggests also that they are not free agents.
Yes.
And the way that you have used theatricality, that you've used a kind of metadramatic, constant referent to their actions, it reduces them to puppets as they are. And I think that is for me, it's the final comment that this play is making about the controversies, conflicts in our country.
That's actually very, very insightful, very insightful. I would have expected no less from you, of course. But yes, it is there. That comment is there. Though I have to confess that when one is writing, when one is actually in the creative process, everything doesn't come to one consciously. It is only in retrospect that one can see what has happened. You're pointing this out. Enriches my film, because I think when a work of art is made, then after it has been made and served, so to speak, to the world, it continues to grow. It continues to grow in dimension, in richness, because people who interpret it and see it in different ways actually add to all the many dimensions. I think this actually is a very important point that Shakespeare has made, that that they are not free agents. Many of us are not free agents. We don't even know that we are not. That is there. And to that extent, we are all puppets, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Shukanta saw it as well.
Yeah, Shukanta couldn't be here today. He's teaching. Yeah, he's teaching at Marashok.
You saw it together.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
Yes, I'll just come to you. Yeah. Can she just have her question and then you can add?
Adding to Shukriya's comment, it's interesting that Rono is killed by the Hindus and Julie is killed by the Muslims. That's very interesting.
Yes, it sort of harks back to the Lalun song, Mamun chini poita prokar, bamni chini ki prokare. So it's just the outside clothes. In fact, somebody saw it and said, somebody very sweet and gentle, who obviously is not very intellectually inclined, asked me, "Acha Didi, ওই যে মুসলমানরা মুসলমানকে মারলো আর হিন্দুরাই হিন্দুকে মারলো, এটা দিয়ে আপনি কি বোঝাতে চেয়েছেন?" আমি বললাম, এটাকে বলে আইরনি।
I wanted to ask, were you influenced at all by West Side Story, which is also a musical where there are two gangs and then the two, factions? Which
Yeah, well, a long time ago, West Side Story had impressed me immensely, and we used to all do this all the time, and it was really very, very impressive, and I made it a point to see it again before I made this film, and suddenly it seemed very dated. It just didn't work anymore. The whole thing seemed dated and slow and just didn't work, and I was very saddened, and sometimes I wondered if one should revisit the films one has loved. Maybe one shouldn't, but certainly it was an influence. Since West Side Story, I'd been thinking vaguely, not making it the way I've made it now, but thinking vaguely about two gangs, and I used to imagine a crossing with lots of lights and them picking up stones and, before the fight starts, making the place dark. I was all these. See, what happens when you make a film is, more than anything else, images start crowding your mind. These images would keep coming to my mind, and of course I didn't do anything about them. I just thought about them, forgot them, and went about my work. When I started to make this film, it all came back, and I thought that they must have different colors. They must have red and black. Now, why I thought red and black, I don't know, but I do believe, and I've heard of this since, that they had in Verona and in Italy, they had these goons, these families had these armed gangs, and they were known as the Guelphs and the Ghibellines. And I think the Guelphs wore white. Black. Well, one wore black, one wore white. I'm not a Shakespeare scholar, but I wanted to actually color code the film very strongly, and I did that. In the Khan household, everyone wears some variation of black, and in the red, the Mitra household, there are always this. Everybody is in, no matter what, is in red, in some shade of red. And Romeo and Juliet, of course, the pristine lovers, they just wear white or pastels or pale blues, pale pinks, because they wear the colors of purity, so to speak. I mean, colors perceived as the colors of purity, and actually when you see them, they're not strong, they're gentle colors. So that's how I conceived of the film. The entire color palette was worked out like that.
Questions? Yes.
You don't need a mic, it's just
No, you just need a mic because we are recording, so
in the song Kala Paisa Wala, the slum dwellers, they break the fourth wall and almost directly address the audience. I think that's very interesting because many of us were watching the film at a multiplex, and maybe the multiplex has been built by demolishing a slum.
Sorry, I didn't get that. Maybe the multiplex.
Maybe the multiplex, has been built by demolishing a
slum.
That's a thought.
That makes the audience complicit in the process also, of that. And
yes,
also that
indeed.
the film the film itself is being played in the multiplex.
Yes.
So I like this,
Wheels within wheels.
self-criticality.
Yes. That's very interesting. That's a very interesting point. It well could have been done.
Okay. Any other questions?
Parmita?
Yeah. Ananda.
Ekan.
Is it working or? Yeah, just push it up.
Looking for jokes.
Give him another mic.
How do you give him the other mic?
All these wrong signals, false alarms, etc. There has to be a red light over
Yeah.
No, I mean, I shouldn't be talking because I just told you I haven't seen the film. So, but from what I've read about it and what I know of it, you've done a very risky thing.
Yes, and I'm paying for it.
No, I mean, I'm sure the
My
audience
producer's paying
understands.
for it.
Exactly. He won't produce any of your films again.
Wow. What a prophet of doom you are.
I am.
Prophet of doom.
People know me as such. No, you see, I mean, what strikes me as so much of a gamble is pretty obvious. I mean, you are actually, it's a throwback to 100-year earlier form of film, where you actually have painted backdrops, and you're working on the theatre idiom, and obviously you're doing this deliberately, and you're going against the grain of 21st century cinema, which is determinantly realistic. It has to have a kind of realistic backdrop behind it. I mean, literally painted backdrop as opposed to realistic backdrop. That's one of the aspects which I'm presenting before you. You are literally alienating the audience, the cinema audience, from a kind of idiom that they have become familiar with, even though they know that Bollywood, etc., is dealing with unrealistic devices like song and dance, item numbers. They are still going to, because they know that that has become the majority idiom, they will accept that. But they may not accept yours simply because you're literally distancing them. It's an almost in-your-face kind of presentation that take this as theatre or reject it. I'm getting this feeling, and which is a tremendous gamble for a filmmaker to take. Obviously, at this stage, not 100 years back. And simultaneously, you are also in a tradition of Shakespearean filmmaking in India. Obviously,
are you talking about Vishal Bhatia?
Yes. So, how do you place his Shakespeare, and where are you in that continuum of Shakespearean adaptation in India, Indianizations of Shakespeare? This is a double-barrel question, obviously, but I'm constantly been thinking of how much of a risk.
It was a risk. It was a risk. But Ananda, you see, the thing is that I wanted to get out of my comfort zone too.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to shake the audience out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
I wanted to do both. You see, as far as Vishal is concerned, I'm a great admirer of his. In Makbul particularly, I thought it was a brilliant adaptation. Brilliant. I mean, nothing short of brilliant. I didn't care so much for Omkara and Haider. Omkara mainly because I think that the Omkara character, Ajay Devgan character, there was no nobility, perceivable nobility about him that could make him a tragic hero, noble with a tragic flaw. Othello has to have that. I mean, without that, I can't imagine Othello. It doesn't matter what kind of setting you put it into. The essence has to come through. That's what I feel. And Haider I have issues with, but I don't want to go into that now. I think Vishal is a wonderful filmmaker. He really is. He's very good. His scripts are brilliant. I loved Haider how he used the Hamlet's father's ghost as roof. That was really wonderful. I loved the way he used the Kashmir setting and the play within a play. I just didn't care for the way Haider went mad. I mean, Shahid Kapoor went mad. That I didn't like.
You didn't like that rap thing?
I didn't care for that. It didn't somehow resonate with me. I didn't like the way Ophelia wound a lot of wool around her and died, and I mean, particularly because Vishal's Ophelia was not frail and vulnerable like Shakespeare's Ophelia. She was a journalist. She knew her mind, etc. But having said all that, I think Vishal is one of the best narrators of Shakespeare in the country. There's no two ways about it. He's very good. There is somebody else that Koel was telling me about, Rajan.
Sharat Kataria did 10 ml Love.
No, the other one, another one that... Jairaj. I believe, I haven't seen that. I didn't think of myself as following that tradition of Shakespeare, actually. But I did want to bring the fact of it being a play alive. And as you're right, it was a huge gamble that didn't pay off. So, it was a gamble, yes. But, as far as I'm concerned, I've done a lot of classical storytelling. There is a very fixed idea of what an Aparna Sen film is going to be. Lots of people have said, films are like poetry, একটা কবিতার মতন, কিন্তু এখানে গিয়ে হঠাৎ নাচ গান এগুলো কেন? I just have to break out of that mold, It's just, it's suffocating me, really. I've done very naturalistic settings, very realistic settings. I've done the classical linear storytelling, going back and forth in time storytelling, all kinds of things. It's just been there, done that, I don't want to keep repeating myself, but maybe I will go back to it someday when the need arises in me. Here, in this particular film, the need was to break out of this mold.
I just sort of, yes.
I'm just going back to the use of rhyme and verse.
Yes.
So possibly the actors on screen are not used to speak in rhyme and then act. So what kind of challenges they face? Because in terms of action, and I'm saying that when they're saying in rhyme, did you devise any kind of rhythm or exercise? Or
no, I in fact asked them not to treat it as rhyme. There was what I was inspired by was a play that Kaushik Sen had done, a production by Kaushik Sen called Korkot Kranti Desh. There also Srijato, the same person who wrote for me, he had written the rhymed dialogue, and the way the actors acted, it never conflicted with the dramatic graph. It never conflicted with that. That is what I had said. For instance, I remember one or two lines which I think it's, if you just say them the way you would normally say them, then it works as rhyme and as drama, because I think when Juliet says when they shut up in the bathroom with Romeo, when she shut up in the bathroom with Romeo, she says, "Tomaro bari Arshinagar, amra dujon porshi," and Romeo, who's a bit crass, says, "Porshi mane nebar." So, and then there's knock, 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 knock. Juliet says, "Evar." So it rhymes, but it's also, it's natural dialogue.
I was just going to take this opportunity to ask you about, because you seem to be working a lot with theatre now and with...
Well, not now, in this film.
No, but I was wondering if you'd like to say a little bit about your Sari Raat, that film, which is also...
Yes. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true, actually. That's true.
Yeah.
Because it just so happens that I've now worked with two plays, one after the other.
Yes. So you are working with theatre.
Yes, I am. I hadn't thought of it like that, actually. Yeah. That was my tribute to Badul Sarkar, actually, whom I had a great deal of regard for and respected hugely. This was, of course, one of his early plays, Sari Raat, Shara Rattir, actually, translated for us into Hindustani by Ashok Singh of Rangakarmi. Now, the challenge over there, cinematically, somebody had asked me, why that play? What is there in that play? I said, what is there in that play is that room. that room and the three characters, that poses a tremendous amount of challenge because অসম্ভব একটা ঘরে অসম্ভব একটা রাত is what the old man says at the end. An implausible night in an implausible room, or an implausible night in an implausible room. So it's an অসম্ভব ঘর. Now what is this অসম্ভব ঘর? I ask myself as the director. I'm going to brief my production designer, my art director. What am I going to say to him? অসম্ভব একটা ঘর তৈরি করো. How can I say that? I have to tell him what I want. I just can't say make an অসম্ভব room for me. So, and what do I tell my cinematographer, my director of photography? I tell him, make this room impossible. It can't be done like that. You actually have to, all of you together, the production designer, the cinematographer, and the director, all together have to work towards making this space an implausible space. We did that with light, we did that with shadows, we did that with constantly changing light and shadow, we did that with all the junk that was in the room, which by itself, the pieces by themselves may have been either ordinary or beautiful. But when they are seen in passing, out of focus in a track shot, then they take on a kind of character of their own, and often it seems like somebody is watching from behind. That kind of feeling is what we wanted to give it. It's always as though it's seen through somebody else's eyes. Maybe the old man's.
It is actually very, it's a lot. It's very Bergmanesque.
Yes.
As a play.
Yes, it is. So but for me it was a huge challenge. It was a huge challenge to have just these three characters. And do come and see it on the 14th if you can. And I've tried my best, and I think my DOP has done a wonderful job. DOP stands for Director of Photography. And I think my production designer, commonly known as the art director, also has done a great job. So, and the three actors, I had the privilege and the honor of directing three of the best actors today in the same film. For me, that was a big high.
Who are they?
Well, there's Anjan Dotto, there's Ritik Chakraborty, and there's my own daughter, Konkona.
Well, the trailer is online.
Yeah, the trailer is available.
Okay, the trailer. I haven't seen the trailer.
I've been
Really?
passes for the 14th.
You got good, great.
Shangita? Yeah.
Is this working? No.
Reenati, having known your films very closely right from the beginning, I'm very interested in also knowing how you think about music and musical sequences. For instance, in an earlier film like Paramita Rakdin, there is a memorable sequence, but it's a still sequence where somebody sits in a room and sings. But it also resonated in one way.
There was another one where the same song keeps appearing in different situations and comes right back at the end. Tori Amar Hotat.
But with this film, you're doing much more. You're actually engaging with different genres of music. And you've talked about Sufism, you've talked about the Baul form. So tell us about how this grew with you and Debu working on it together, and finally having Parvati Baul sing them on screen.
Okay. Actually, you're talking about some of my favorite scenes in the film. I had always imagined the riot and the scene in the bathroom ending with a song. I'd always imagined, even when it was not supposed to be a musical. When it was just, I'd written a straightforward screenplay, when there were going to be no painted backdrops, where it was all going to be realistic. Even then, I had thought of this departure, because for a long time now, I've been a little bored with everyday reality. I've been wanting to, go into the surreal space. You've seen it in Juganto, you've seen it in 15 Park Avenue, definitely in Goinar Baksho. I've been wanting to do that, and I wanted to, I just didn't want to be confined. This is the way it happens, therefore it has to progress in this manner, this manner, this manner. No, I didn't want that. I wanted actually at that time I'd wanted Abida Parveen. I'd heard her in live once, and the energy. I mean, I just absolutely, I'm a huge fan of hers. And then I thought, in the middle of the riot, she just stands there, almost like a Greek chorus, and she just sings, not paying any heed to what's happening around her. That's how I'd imagined the scene. Now I heard after that Parvati Baul was not ill. She is not well. She has some problem, lung problem, or vocal cord. Abida Parveen.
Yeah.
I that's what I heard.
Right.
That she no longer sings that way. She sings a little, and then she has a kind of chorus of singers around her, and she, they take it up. So that wasn't going to do. Then one day I just saw Parvati Baul perform on stage, and she has these dreadlocks, and the energy that she has, and when she spins around, her dreadlocks sort of create a black halo around her. And the energy of Parvati Baul was something that, yes, if I couldn't have Abida Parveen as she was, then I definitely want Parvati Baul. And I asked her that same evening. I said, if I want you in a film, will you act? Will you sing? She said, why not? That's all she said, and we left it at that. And then we worked these scenes out. And then I wanted her in the middle of the fire, when people were running around and all of that. And I was going forward with the story, but every time, like a reminder, like a chorus, she would come and she would be singing this song of Amar Bhitor Ami Ki Tar Khobor Rakhi. Now that's the way it grew. With Debu, we talked about it. We actually saw the whole crew, all of us together. Even Shohag, who's sitting at the back, who did my acting workshops and helped me do the casting and so on. Shohag Sen. All of us watched a lot of musicals together. And one of our important and chief inspirations was actually Chicago. Because in Chicago you have reality, real things, and then immediately juxtaposed by that you have a song sequence, almost like in a nightclub. And that was absolutely fascinating, I thought. I loved that. And that was one of the reasons why I have that Arshinagar song in the beginning, because it didn't want to show real blood and real gore, because this is a fight that they have every day. মানে উঠতে বসতে সকাল বিকেল ওদের এরকম ঝগড়া হয় এই দুটো গুন্ডা বাহিনীর. So I wanted that represented through a dance, through a martial arts kind of a dance, where they would be dancing and fighting. Only at the end, when he slashes the other man's Sonny's throat, do you realize, oh, it was a real fight. Only at the end. So we are constantly going between reality and the not real, in a kind of Brechtian fashion, really, so to speak. The Fatima character comes in front, and she acknowledges the fact that she's also a puppeteer, because she says, থাকবো না আর এই পাড়াতে থেকে কি বা ফল, দূরে কোথাও চলে যাবো, খুলবো গিয়ে পুতুল নাচের দল, and she winks at the audience. So it's, and also right at the end when that paper flutters in, where did kahan se aa gaya? And you don't know whether it was all imagination, was it a puppet theatre, or was it real somewhere? You don't know. So that's the way I wanted it played. And with Debu, we just worked on these songs. They used to come to my house, Debu and Srijato, and we just sat together, and they wrote the words, they did the song, they would have lunch, and then they would take naps, and I would go to my room and I'd take a nap, they would come back and work on it again. It just grew in the old-fashioned way. Earlier on, songs were created like that, I mean, when I was very young, they used to come to Uttam Kumar's house, and then they would sit with the harmonium and go papo, papo, and they'd create the song then and there, That has gone out of fashion. Nobody does that anymore. You're given a situation, you're given a brief, you're given the length, and you're basically told this is the kind of song I want, and then they create the song, and you either like it or don't like it, or you make changes or you don't make changes. That's the way it's done. Here it was a very, very collaborative effort. I mean, I told Debu, there are parts, I'm sorry.
No,
the parts where because Shongita wanted to know, the parts where I told Debu, I really want this, and I didn't know all the names, So I said, I want the bass drums to come and hit inside you hard. So he said, shall we do heavy metal? I said, yes, let's do heavy metal. You know, that's the way we worked at it. And I said, oh, I want some, please use some blues guitars here. You know, and Debu, of course, went to town on that because he loves it. So that's the way we worked.
Okay, we are coming to the end of this session. It's an hour-long session. So if you have any questions, this is your moment.
I was wondering if you wanted to talk about 36 Chaurangi Lane.
She has in the beginning.
Yeah. The way you worked in King Lear at the end. That is what I was asking.
Okay. Miss Tonham used to teach Shakespeare very badly, just like Miss Gold. She used to in fact have spellings and the words and their meanings written down on the blackboard. Everyone would have to copy them down. But instead of doing that, they were reading love comics secretly. But she didn't even know, poor soul. But she really loved Shakespeare. In spite of teaching it so badly, she loved her Shakespeare. And she knew her Shakespeare. And that's when I really feel at one with Miss Tonham, you know. Because right at the end, she realizes that she has been taken for a ride. She's been really betrayed by this young couple. And when she goes there, she is sad, but there is an acceptance. Even when, you know, they were kissing, when she comes in the middle of the storm and she watches them kissing, there is a little bit of anger because they have, you know, this is what they wanted the room for. And yet there is acceptance. So they're young, they're in love. There is a kind of wisdom to Miss Tonham. There is a resignation, a wisdom. You know, interesting stories that I was asked by my chief assistant, what should Jennifer's expression be here? I said, oh God, I don't know. He said, how can you not know? What is she feeling? I said, I don't know. So he said, how can you say you don't know? You're the director, you've written the part. I said, that doesn't mean I know what she's feeling, you know. I mean, for me, she had become a real character, and it was almost invasive, almost intrusive to try and tell her what to feel. I said, you know, she's just been to her brother. She's had this fight with her brother. She's emotionally very, very exhausted. And then there's this storm. You know, the storm will take care of a lot. And then he went up to Jennifer. Jennifer, what are you feeling, do you think? Jennifer said, oh, please don't ask me that. Please don't ask me that. There is this storm going on. I was listening to them, you know, almost unable to believe my ears that she was saying exactly the same thing almost, because she hadn't heard me say this. At the end, what could I have used except Lear? You know, that's the only answer I can give you. What could I have used except Lear? There's nothing else. And the way she says, pray do not mock me. And the fact that Jennifer was a theatre actress, she'd been in Shakespeareana, she's worked with Shakespeare all her life. That all made it a very rich experience for me, you know. When, you know, she had told me once, I said, am I over-directing you? She said, listen, I think you know Miss Tonham better at this stage. When I get to know her better than you, I'll tell you. And then at the end, when I was attempting in my own idiotic way to try and tell her how to deliver those lines, she said, you know, I think I've got an interesting way. Just listen. And then she said, sort of, when you come, I've forgotten the lines, I'll kneel down and ask of thee forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And how she underlined the I'll kneel down and ask of thee forgiveness. She underlined the thee and the I'll. And that kind of just completed it. So,
and the bit about birds in the cage, she has this curious sing-song way in which she talks about the birds in the
which birds?
Yes.
Let's come. Let's away to prison. Yeah. She says that. So and she tells the dog actually in a kind of half bantering way, except that the banter, and that's what I like. I love mixed emotions. You know, I've been trying to tell some of my actors, the more conservative of them, and they say, no, but this is a sad scene. I said, but I want it to be funny as well. You know, but that's very difficult to bring off.
Any other questions? Mukula, do you have?
I'm sorry.
Okay, in that case, it's time to wrap up. Thank you very much, Aparna Sen, for being with us and spending
It was
so
such
much
a pleasure. It's such a pleasure being with an informed audience. Thank you.
And thank you, audience. Thank you very much. Thank you all my students, my colleagues, everybody who's come today. I was a little surprised there were no casting questions. No questions on casting.
I have a lot to say. We have a lot of problems. I wanted to talking about this.
Which we will not talk about.
We wish it was otherwise. The central character goes on.
Never mind.
This might be because you are producing the film. You know that
I didn't produce the film.
you're not producing it.
No. If I had been producing the film, I wouldn't have been here. I would have been at the Loan Sharks. I think.
Thank you.
Okay,
so
thank
much.
you very much.
Thank the people at the back as well. People
Yes. So Shohag Sen has been with us all this while. So thank you very much. And Madhurima, who's been stellar in organizing.
And Madhurima, I have to say, is the person who pushed me into doing Sarirat. I wouldn't have done Sarirat if it hadn't been for her prodding.
Oh, great. Thank you.